Hey everyone, welcome to the Elite Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Popple, and today we're doing an exciting part two of our episode on short-term rentals with Vivian Walsh and Josh Laguerre. Appreciate you guys coming back on for part two, and this is going to be fun because now we're going to talk about what separates good short-term rental hosts from great short-term rental hosts, which both you guys are great. So let's tell all the good ones out there how they can become more like you. So what's something that separates a good short-term rental host from a great one, and what are some key features or experiences that make properties stand out? Why don't we start with Vivian?
Some good versus great is gonna be, I guess, if we're talking experience for the guest, it would just be those little details and those little extra touches. Like having a welcome sign with their name on it. I noticed that really makes people feel like really special and they really like that. Having things like Q-tips and toothpicks in the bathroom, and like if you have a yard, having like a football out there, a soccer ball, having a grill if you've got a little patio. um, yeah, I know you do snacks and waters and things like that. Just like going above and beyond those little extra touches, people really appreciate, and they just feel more like special and more like this space was really prepared for me and with me in mind. I'd say that's a big difference for creating a good experience and a great experience. That and communicating, touching base, like once I've checked in, is everything good? Is there anything that you need? Any questions? Like, when a server brings the food to the table, but they don't come back and you didn't realize when they dropped it off that you were gonna need some sauce. Like that kind of touching base and making sure that they don't need anything or have any questions, and that they feel comfortable reaching out with any like trivial questions, just to make sure that they have a good stay.
No, that's awesome. What do you think, Josh?
I think coming off as a professional host is key for that, right? Like getting a guidebook, a digital guidebook. There's a lot of different platforms that offer that to where you can actually connect it. So one I use is I use StayFi, which StayFi, right, makes you look really good. So if anyone that needs to connect to the Wi-Fi, right, they'll put in their Wi-Fi information. They have to put in their name, email, phone number, and then opt into messaging or communication or whatever. And then once they do that, you can put them on a drip campaign as well, right? So as opposed to like just the person booking, seeing like your websites and everything that you're sending to them to manage, that you manage all these properties or whatever, and you want repeat guests. Now everybody is saying, oh man, this is what Ronan Stays looks like, right? So you give them that kind of hotel feel. And then once they log in, right, they could see it's like, hey, we're connected with Viator and Hostco. And so what they do is like, hey, we can offer you all these different things in the area, and I don't really have to do anything. It's saying, hey, this is paddle boarding. This is go out on a fishing charter, right? And you get paid when they book through those, right? So like it's like a hands-off thing where you have professional people that are vetted, and then you're giving them that experience as well because you're offering all these things to do. Of course, I have other things and other businesses that I try to support on the side as well through our messaging, but everybody sees that app in the or the website, and they get all that information. So it just kind of gives them that like luxury almost feel where they're like being hand fed just all these different things, and they're looking at stuff and they're like, wow, that's pretty neat. And then if they look you up, they're like, oh man, he has a certain amount of Google reviews, right? That makes me feel comfortable. His website pops up, and then, yeah. So, you can kind of really make yourself and your company look really good and professional the more you get into it.
Yeah, I like that digital guidebook because I got the old school binder with my all the pontoon pullouts in it for my guests at the rentals. So no, I like taking it digital, and then that's pretty cool. So so you didn't have to go and find the vendors that are on there; they were already on there, and then if they book, you get like a small kickback. You said.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. I'm actually
Massages, haircuts, whatever.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look at that for my own, because I think that's really interesting. Um, how important is design and branding in today's market, and what are you doing to create a unique vibe or feel for your rentals? I'm gonna start with Josh on this one because he's already plugged in Ronin Stays a few times, so he's been hitting that brand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about branding, right? It's like,
Sure.
you want to be seen. You think about Nike and you see a check, and you already know what it is, right? So it's all the subtle hints and things to support your business. How do people remember you? Are they seeing you throughout the community? Whether it's like a billboard or if it's like the flag that you put, because I have 2 flag poles. We're getting Ronin Stays flags put on them as well. So I'm all about that in specific with the theme. So every house is different. I have a house that is a Ranger house. It's got green walls, yellow doors, blue cabinets. So it's like very bright colors, but all kind of connected to the military in a sense, with the yellow. And then the green is lighter. So we do lighter colors because we don't want it to be super dark. We've got mannequins in there that are dressed up in uniform. I've got old military equipment that I bought in a a thrift store. Nothing that I care too much about. Some of my old stuff that I just don't really need or want. I put my flick or my field bearing equipment, like where you can put all your magazines and everything into, and your radios on it. Just stuff that I don't really use or need anymore. But we try to theme it out really well, and every single home has a theme like that. So the more you do, the more people are going to remember you and want to come back.
That's pretty cool. What's your thought, Vivian, on important in design and branding in today's market? And what kind of unique vibe or feel are in your rentals?
Yeah, it's super important. And I think that's really cool how you put like your old equipment and stuff in there and like really like sealed the theme off with that. That's cool. It's so important. I mean, as we were talking about competition earlier and saturation, right? Like that's the best way to stand out is how cool is it? Like the first thing that people are going to see is the pictures, right? Think about like how many listings they're scrolling through like so fast. And our attention spans are so short now.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta grab them with the photos, and you gotta like have just a really cool design, something that stands out, for sure. For branding, we do so. I'm like when one of our Airbnbs, we have like a photo grass wall, and we have a sign over it that just says the name of the listing, like Lantana Leisure. So if they're like taking pictures, we actually had some guests send us selfies with the sign, which was like super cute. But like just kind of putting our name and our brand everywhere, like in our listing, and then I guess just follow up messaging with like our website and our kind of reiterating our name to our guests.
Yeah, man, that's actually a pretty cool idea. So, you say you thought about when you created that photo wall, you thought about how can I get someone to take advertising photos for me and post on their own social media, basically. Like, so I actually think that's actually probably a good tip for anybody. Is like just the more Instagrammable your property is, the probably the higher likelihood you're going to be booked all the time. So, yeah. No, I like that. Cool. And I think that Ranger house I think that's a pretty cool idea, especially in a military town, Josh. I like that. How do you guys use tech like smart locks, noise monitors, any kind of automation to run tighter operations and improve the guest experience? Vivian, we'll start with you.
So as I mentioned in part 1, the August smart lock is my favorite piece of tech. It has saved me so many hours. It's amazing. And that's like the biggest thing that I would recommend tech wise. I guess other than that, just using like different tools that make your life easier, like with the dynamic pricing tools and automating your messaging. If you're on multiple different platforms, making sure that you're using a channel manager like Guesty, so that you're not having issues with your calendar and you're just automating things so that way you're not missing anything and everyone's having the same great experience no matter where they're booking from.
No, I think that's great. And then what about you, for you, Josh? What's what are your what's the tech that you use?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there that can really really take you to the next level. The one that I mentioned before, StayFi, is really the one that, I think it's gonna kind of take it to the next level. Breezeway also helps me with they create the guidebook, the digital guidebooks for each of the different properties to make it like a really cool experience. And then StayFi has that kind of hotel feel where everyone, has to log in and put in their credentials. So they all get to see like Ronan stays on their phone. They log in and then they get put into a CRM. But I just think that delivers a really cool customer service experience, those two things. But yeah, I've kind of mentioned that already.
Yeah, no, but I think those are important.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys are investing in professional photography, videos, virtual tours? What's actually moving the needle for you? Vivian.
If you're not gonna do professional photography, go home. Like, don't even bother. Like, don't even try. You have to. It's a must. Like, you have to have good photos. Like I said, short attention spans, and they're scrolling. Like, if your photos don't catch their eye, they're gonna go on to the next one.
You agree, Josh?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a real estate agent as well, so I kind of see that side and how photos impact it, and then also on the rental side, it's all important. Even if if you buy a house, you don't want to just use the photos that from the listing agent for your. When people say that, I'm like, no, please don't. So like drone photos, things like that, really make it like, especially if you're close to the beach. You can showcase how close everything is. I got this one house that's close to like boat launches, parks, a little dog beach, like, all the little things. So you can really capture how close proximity everything is if you do that. So if your home kind of meets that criteria, you absolutely need drone photos. But, and if you get some really good drone photos one time of like the Navarre Pier and then the Okaloosa Island Pier, you already have those like ready to go for those properties that are in those areas. But yeah, I would recommend that.
Yeah, no, and I definitely like that idea. I think that's probably key for someone who is going to be doing short-term rentals that are close to a lot of really great things, but might not necessarily be like across the street or walking distance. So we want to show the close drive, because I got an example. Like I have a property that's in Fort Walton that it's on the south side of Hollywood, so super close to 98. As and so minutes from Okaloosa Island. But if I just took a picture of like the front house in the neighborhood, it looks pretty regular until I like point out that, hey, you got pontoon rentals under 5 minutes away, right? I mean, literally, as soon as you pull out of 98, there's a pontoon rental. You're looking at it, two of them actually, and then you're 7 minutes to the beach on Okaloosa Island. So I'm actually probably need to get a drone shot. Thanks for that, Josh. I need to add that in. Do either of you guys offer upsells or additional services, early check-in, pet fees, experiences that add to your bottom line? And I know Josh mentioned that in his guest book that he got some kickbacks on some of those estate things that people could book at the location. But what are the upsells or additional services that you guys provide? We'll start with you, Josh.
I definitely do the early and late checkout. That's kind of an easy one to consistently make $50 on it. A lot of people are willing to do that. You just got to make sure your cleaners can sustain it. So before you start promising things like that, make sure you guys have good systems in place and approval processes. Because I let the cleaning manager be the final approval on that. I could say all day, like, yeah, you can do it, but they have routes, and things take time. And, if their routes and personnel that are working that day can't accommodate it, then, you can't do it. In terms of other upsells, through HostCo, just the kickbacks, things like that. I used to offer paddle boards and stuff, but, people don't really like to treat things nicely. And I just don't have time to like inventory, like, oh, did they bring back the little fin at the bottom? Let me put it together. Let me wash it down. And, it's just, maybe I'll get back into it, but those are the main things. And then I'll try to support all my friends' businesses and stuff, and say, and maybe I'll throw in clean eats, and say, hey, but some of them are like, yeah, we'll give like a little discount if you come and you say they book through Ronan Stays or whatever. But not too much. That's probably something I could work on.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, yeah, that makes sense. And I like what you said about the early and late check-ins. I was actually going to ask how you work that out with the cleaners, but I think it's good leaving your cleaner to have the final say on that, because I mean they are the ones that have to clean the mess and have it ready. So it's important that they be able to do that. Vivian, what is it? What do you guys offer as far as any additional services like early check-ins, pet fees, anything that increase bottom line?
I really don't do any additional fees for anything. I mean, we don't allow pets. So of course we have to allow service animals, but we don't do pets on any of our properties, so we don't have that. If they want to do an early check-in, as long as it's clean, I just let them for free because they love that and they're really appreciative, and they usually almost always leave me like a great 5-star review. It's just like for me, it's like a great way to start, make them happy, like super happy from the jump. So I just let them. For a late checkout, it depends on how late they want to check out. I'll give them like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe, like depending on if it's a turnover or not. But if they want to like really check out like hours later, then I'll charge them. And also just depending on how late as how much I'm going to charge them. Cause like, is there a chance I'm going to need to block the night? Like you want to check out that late, is it going to be ready by 4 if someone books? Then I'm going to charge you a lot more because now I have to block the night and I could be missing out on a whole nightly rate. So just that, but yeah, there's not a lot of upcharging or anything. So something I could probably work on too and look into.
Yeah, and I'm kind of so I do allow dogs, and I charge extra for the dogs. I generally don't allow cats. They just leave a bad, they can leave smells that are hard to get out sometimes. So that's the reason I pretty much have not allowed cats. But for dogs, I charge an extra fee. I do the same thing Vivian does. Like as far as on the early side, if someone check in early, it's kind of like I just usually if people usually ask ahead of time because my cleaner cleans for me and other people, I just take into account that I don't know if she can do it. So I always pretty much tell people check in early. It kind of just depends on if it's ready or not. But usually as soon as it's ready, I let people get in. As far as checking out late, again, it probably falls into me being so small time, but I really let people know that I'm kind of like Vivian. Again, I give people like, well, we have a little flexibility about an hour, but after that hour, it's kind of cut and dry. You either need to book the other night or do it because like Vivian said, you wind up losing that other night. And some of that depends on time of year too. Obviously, if this is November in our area, November, December, I'm probably a lot more flexible on that. We'll probably let someone, you want to check out at noon or 1 o'clock, fine, no problem, because I might not have someone else staying for a whole other week. But Memorial Day to Labor Day, it is very much like, nah, man, everybody has to be out by 11 at the latest because we got to get this thing turned over. So, yeah, and I think that's something where anybody who's listening right now has to kind of look at their personal situation and needs to look at like the players they have on their team. Because like, Josh said for him to accommodate it, it has to do with, his cleaners and schedule. And I think that's the same thing Vivian and I said about, us just, letting the guests do it. If we can do it, we can do it. But just sometimes it's tougher. So moving on to scaling systems and bigger strategy, how'd you decide when it's time to expand to add another short-term rental, and what do you look for in the second or third property? And this is probably a little more for people that are, when you're buying the short-term rentals versus managing others. But when let's apply that to like if you were doing this on properties that you owned yourself, when would you decide to get that second and third short-term rental? Vivian.
I would say once you're comfortable, confident, you're in a flow, you've got everything automated and you're not spending all of your time on it. Like if you're spending all of your time on it, then how are you going to add on more to that, right? So like just once you're automated and you get that down to a very minimal amount of time that you're spending on it, so now you have time to take on another project and you have the funds and you're like, this is great, I want to duplicate it, then like, heck yeah, and it's time, go do it again. Stack them up.
Cool. Man, what about for you, Josh? What was it you saw when you started getting your second and third one?
I mean, it's exactly like she said. Like once you're comfortable enough to do so and efficiently, because it's a hospitality business. You still, like, although we can look at it, I mean, as an investor, you're going to look at it like, okay, how can I scale? How can I grow? But you also, if you're going to be successful at it, or if you want to be successful at it, you got to care. So you got to be able to deliver that same product every time. And for me, it's like, when I was comfortable, and I got to a point where, I was at 20, and then I scaled down to 12, and now I'm back, like, back up to 15. I was almost thrown in the towel, but then, you kind of figure some things out. You kind of go back to the lab and figure out what those pain points are, and if there's any solutions to them. And if you can figure it out, then, I mean, I just feel like so many people get in and then they get out. So it's like, you really have to figure out how to get comfortable, and then you can start putting on more.
Cool. If someone was thinking about self-managing versus hiring a property manager, what do you think that difference is? Like, why would someone choose one versus the other? We'll start with you, Josh, then go to Vivian on that.
Yeah, it's mainly time. If you got the time and capacity to do so, if you're passionate about it, you'll self-manage. But if you've got a full-time job, and you're stuck at a, maybe not even a desk, and you don't have the time to hop on Airbnb, address concerns, make phone calls to get an HVAC guy because your drain line's clogged, or, maybe it's something more serious than that. Because you got to call multiple people now. You got to talk to the guests. Okay, is this a real issue? You got to analyze the problem. So there's a lot that goes into it than just pushing buttons and then checking people in. But so, yeah, if you have the capacity to do so, yes, absolutely do it. If not, don't feel bad about letting the professionals do it, or people that do it full time do it, that have a business. Not saying that to get my own. I just say I'm a big proponent of, knowing your strengths, leaning on your strengths, having some goals and figuring out if that meets your goals and that's something that you want to do, pursue it. But, if it's not one of your strong suits, you don't plan on trying to make it your strong suit, then pawn it off, hire out.
Mm-hmm. Then Vivian, what are your thoughts versus self-managing versus hiring a property manager?
I completely agree with everything you just said. I would say also, if you're not, like, a lot of people don't live in vacation markets, or they don't live in great spots for Airbnb. So maybe you want to invest somewhere else. And in that case, I would advise hiring out, because there's just stuff that pops up, and unless you already have a good system and you, like, know a ton of people there and you have a great boots on the ground, it would probably make more sense to hire out, just so that someone's actually there and, like, able to pop in on the cleaners and able to put eyes on it and go assess issues if they need to. But yeah, if you have the time, really, I would say down to time and location, I guess.
Cool. Now I know we talked about it a little bit, but in direct bookings, are you guys trying to get away from Airbnb dependence? And if so, how are you building that audience? And we'll start with Vivian on this one.
So Guesty actually collects the guests' phone numbers and things from whatever site that they're booking on. So we make it part of our checkout message whenever they leave, that, like, if you'd like to stay ever again in the future, we can send you information for a discount. And if they're interested in that, then we'll text them our direct booking link. But I will say, I really like Airbnb. I haven't had any issues personally. Like I said, I'm a super host, and I think that they treat me differently because of that. So they've been really nice to me, and I get a ton of bookings with them. We really stay booked through Airbnb. So I'm not too worried about, like, getting off of there. But of course, direct bookings are good, and not being fully reliant on a third party is always great. So yeah, I would say it's a good idea to start building up a CRM and a base of your guests so that you can retarget them and be a little less reliant.
Mm-hmm. And then same question to you, Josh, about direct bookings. Are you trying to get away from Airbnb dependence?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not being reliant on someone is great. I mean, Airbnb is great. I love Airbnb. I've got almost 1,500 reviews with Airbnb, so it's like they treat us pretty well when you start to get to a certain point. However, you still owe a channel commission to all those channel company, like all those different OTAs, online travel agencies. So when you book them directly, you become the online travel agency. You become the the software. So now instead of you paying Verbo and Booking.com charges 15%. Plum Guide charges 16%, which is crazy, and then they're charging guest fees. So now the guest is like, hey, was wondering if you give veteran discounts. Yeah, absolutely. Here's my website. Reach out to us there, right? I do it subliminally because Airbnb will flag you pretty fast. So there's a way that we reach out to the guests to do that. They book through us, and I say, hey, just send me a screenshot of what you're paying, right? And then your total guests, pets, all that. I put it into my software. Usually it comes in about $400, $500 lower than what they were paying. And then what I do is I increase that, $300. So I save them 150, $200. Depends on the margin. And then, if they're not looking for a discount, then I'll just go all the way to the top, right? And pocket that $500. And then, they're being charged a channel commission as well. So I'm getting 5% on the total amount. So it's a really good way to build repeat guests. I mean, you can give out coupons and stuff for your direct bookings to make, to give people that like incentive to book through you. You can use a CRM, you can send out emails and stuff, which I'm actually getting fully set up this week on Thursday. So not 100% there yet, but we're working towards it. But those are kind of the key things. You develop that more personal touch with the guest, and then and then you develop that repeat guest. But like whenever the guests are really bad, that's when it's kind of a tough situation, because now I own the payment processor as opposed to Airbnb owning it, right? You have to go through them to charge the guests. Now I can just run your card, right? Because you just damaged something or whatever, and that could cause a little bit of friction or bucking back or whatever. And but you are a business, you are a company, as long as you disclose everything and say, hey, you're liable for anything that you do in the house. Like, don't break shit,
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, so that comes with a whole different kind of problem set, but also very, very much worth doing.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Have either of you guys, and then this may or may not apply, but have either of you guys dealt with local regulations or zoning challenges, any short-term rental bans, and have you mitigated that in the markets? Have either of y'all had that problem?
No, thank goodness.
Yeah, I haven't had it yet. Now, Josh, I was curious because I know you got some in Fort Walton, right? I think isn't the city of Fort Walton? Don't they have some regulations on the table right now?
Yeah, I think there's some talks about regulating trying to regulate how many people can show up to a house, right? Which makes sense, right? When you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
The plan to do so, I don't think is going to be very effective if it does go into place. Putting a sticker on your window or a sign in your yard isn't going to correct, to ensure that the guest count is going to be below a certain amount, right, based on square footage, rooms, things like that. Because guests are going to kind of hide that sometimes. The best thing you can do is put cameras in the front yard, backyard, to kind of oversee that, in the event that you need to look at that footage. But I don't know how the city, or if this is going to do anything, and how they're going to actually like fix that problem, because all they're going to do is have, owners pay for permits or just different things that is going to help them collect money. But I don't think it's going to technically solve the problem, unless the host is just sitting there counting heads as they're checking in, which is not sustainable. So maybe the plan is to try to get rid of us.
Yeah, and I was curious that that would be my first ever regulation I've dealt with on the back end. I've not bought stuff after checking zoning and regulations before when I was looking at doing it, and then find out that okay, this area isn't for it, and then usually something I found out due to a previous business I had you guys are familiar, people listening may or may not have heard of Crab Island in Destin, Florida, but I was one of the original floating restaurant owners out there. And as a real outlaw who invented basically, it was basically me and two other guys that created the workaround for selling daiquiris that the government couldn't regulate us on. They had to create laws for us. I'm actually pretty much me and three other guys are the reason the definition of a floating structure exists in the Florida law books. Because they had to create that definition to be able to ban alcohol on floating structures and have it not affect vessels. So I've definitely dealt with government. When government gets involved, it starts messing things up for everybody. So I'm just giving advice to anyone listening: do your homework before you get into the Airbnb markets to make sure it's a friendly area. My advice has always been for anyone in short-term rentals that take the Airbnb element out of it. If the town or community was always a short-term rental destination, example, Destin, Florida, people were doing week-long beach rentals there since I was a little kid, since before I was even born. It was short-term rentals since the beginning of time. Airbnb just helped people that were already there hosting, do it easier. But I know people that were, meeting people at their rentals and collecting the week of money in cash or a check, at the beginning, hand checking their guests in, back in the 90s when I was, growing up around there. Like I said, so when you're in an area where it's always been like that, those people are used to short-term rentals and like it. The problems I've seen is when you have, and we'll use Atlanta as an example because I think they've been really tightening it up on short-term rentals. I think they passed something in the past year or two about all hosts have to actually live in Atlanta. You can't be doing short-term rentals and not live there. It's just one of the things. So I would say basically if your market is not short-term rental friendly, that's when you need to be more cautious versus areas that were always available for short-term rentals. But again, since none of us have had to deal with the regulations yet, we'll hold out. But I think Josh and I we're gonna find out here probably in a year or two over in Fort Walton. So let's talk about KPIs. What KPIs, key performance indicators for any newbies listening to what a KPI is, but what KPIs do you track most closely to gauge your success and decide when to make changes? Vivian, why don't you start with that?
Honestly, I just want to say like the payouts, like the bookings and the money is really going to be the first thing I'm going to notice. Like, dang, we didn't get much money this month. Like, what's going on? We didn't book out as many nights. Maybe we need to lower our price a little bit or whatever.
But you have like that total expectation, and then when you don't hit it, you go back to it. That's when you start breaking down the whole month and figuring out, okay, why did I not meet expectations and where?
I think we like to assume our best month. It's like say like in the past years, this was what we made in April. So if I don't hit that, then I'll be like, what do I need to look at? Like, I think that's the first thing that would catch my attention. Just literally the payouts, the number of nights booked. If I have like a week gap or something coming up, then I'm like, I need to do something. And then honestly, we haven't, knock on wood, we haven't gotten any like negative reviews at all in so long. So I haven't been worried about that. But if something like a 4, even if it's like great stay, I'm like, why? I need to do something to make sure that doesn't happen again. That will make my heart drop and that will get my attention right away.
No, I agree. Josh, what are the KPIs that you pay attention to?
Of course, reviews 4.8 stars or more per listing. I try to get every listing above 4.8. And then on top of that, your average nightly rate, if you're booking, like what are you actually booking for and making on average for that property across a year? And then occupancy rates, I try to stay above 85%. Sometimes what that means is dropping your prices a little bit more than what people would want, not anything stupid low, but, a little bit more than what, and based on, as a real estate agent, Vivian, and, sellers think their house is worth $1 million. It's like, no, it's not. Here's what the market looks like. Let me show you what other people are booking for. And then I have this pricing tool that I also use to back me up into my research. Right. So, just kind of taking those metrics by house and then seeing how well you do across the year.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask this question. This is for my own benefit. So anyone listening, this is me as someone who self-manages, asking experts. So during the wintertime, I often find out as I'm trying to find that price to get my place booked that I'll eventually drop it low enough to get booked. But then I also realize that, and this may have been just my unlucky experience, but once you drop a certain price and it goes to a certain cheapness, you get a lower quality guest. And I've had some experiences where the guests just kind of be nitpicking from the beginning, where and from all my years in working and owning restaurants, I've picked people out before that. It's like, you're never going to please them. And this is like, I'll even throw something like I got an older half brother. He's someone I don't like to go out to eat with because he's going to find something wrong every single time because he wants something free on the check. I hate people like that. But that being said, when there's people like that out there. Have you ever noticed any of that, like during your winter time, where you have just more the guests? I just want to say maybe a little needier, or you got to do more to earn that money, but it happens when you're already cheap in it, or is that just me?
I've noticed that, and I've noticed that if we go below a certain number, we start getting locals, and they just want to party and they just want to make a mess and I don't know, get out of their house for the night and have a bunch of friends over. I feel like we get a lot more locals, and usually they're having too many people over.
Yeah, no, I could definitely say that. What are your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. I mean, you're going to get what the people are paying for. So, if you want quality, you want to make sure you're priced right, not too low.
Mm-hmm.
But people are going to start nitpicking, and it's tough because as a new host, those reviews are everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, over time, as you start to develop those reviews, hopefully you can start to wean away from that and not accommodate the guests or at their beck and call and do whatever they need. I mean, I try to make it a great experience if it's reasonable, but you can kind of tell. Right. And then after a while, you kind of gain that confidence. Look, no, you get one paper towel roll per stay. That's it. We told you that from the beginning. So, and most people are cool with it, but every now and then they're like, I'm staying here for 1 week and I only get one paper towel. Yep. I told you that to prepare for your stay. This is what we'll leave you.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you bring that one up. Is I think I've had similar thing, whether it's been paper towel or rolls of toilet paper, and it's again, I mean, for every bathroom I have there's probably the roll on there with 2 backup rolls. So if they're running out, they're either using it too much or something's
wiping their makeup off and we ran out of toilet paper.
I've definitely seen that, but no, I'm glad I'm not alone in that. And Vivian, what I've done to alleviate some of the locals, but then drop the price is when I drop the price, I also then increase the minimum nights. So that's definitely when if I make buy the night cheap, then I make it minimum 2 or 3 nights. Because that way it's a great stay for someone wanting a vacation. It's not great for someone wanting to throw a party. But no, definitely something that you struggle with. All right, so now the fun. What is either the craziest or the worst thing that ever happened as a short-term rental host? And we'll start with Josh because Vivian kind of already alluded that she's been pretty blessed and not had any real nightmares yet. But I mean, Josh, out of all those, you've had to have something bad happen.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've had a group of people that did drugs, and in the house there was needles that were found, but the way that it came to our attention was our cleaners were like, "Hey, I don't see any movement. I've rung the doorbell several times. There's no lights on. There's cars here. I definitely think there's people in the house, but no one's answering." So I'm like, "All right, I'm on the way." Tried to knock myself, nothing. Called the cops and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go into my house and figure out what's going on because I don't know if they're injured, hurt, or whatever." Right. And I'm packing, so I'm protecting myself, but I'm also
And
in
let me
my
pause you real quick
yeah.
because everybody else probably shouldn't do this. Josh is a former Army Ranger, so he's trained to go in. Like this is light work for him. But for all of us civilians out there, we should call the cops. But all right, Josh, go on. Go on. So I just want to make sure people know that you're a trained killer.
I mean, I did end up calling the cops, so it wasn't anything spectacular on that side. But the cops came and got them out, and then they immediately arrested them. They did a health and welfare inspection. So there's a pro tip for you: you can have them come by and do that if it's your house. And so that happened when we got in. We found a lot of drug paraphernalia, needles, stuff like that, blood on the beds and stuff, and like. It seemed like they were even like tattooing each other or something, and I don't know. But a lot of weirdness. There was a barbell that was propped up in the garage to the attic, and like they duct taped the blinds down to the walls, and just a few other like weird things that I couldn't really remember, but. It was kind of funny that as soon as they opened the door, the cops pretty much immediately cuffed them, and it was like, all right, well there you go. They saw something was wrong, but yeah, luckily nothing major. I mean, I've had instances where I've had some significant damage to the house, but
what's been your biggest single biggest repair bill?
well, I guess yeah, it's exactly what you had. I had French doors like kicked in or something. I had one guy, he was trying to like get into the house with his girlfriend, and he kicked the door in. So that was a whole garage. That was only like $1,500 repair, but I've had a French door glass get broken. And so I had to replace both doors, right? Like the whole frame and everything. So, that was about 3,500 somewhere around there, but maybe a little bit cheaper, but it was covered through Guesty Shield. So shout out to Guesty Shield.
And that's kind of like I said, my two biggest instances was I had an 8-foot glass sliding door. And the funniest thing about that one was that checkouts at 10 a.m. So at 10:05, I get a text from the guest. Hey, everything was great. We enjoyed the stay. By the way, and it was BTW, by the way, I'll pay for the door. That was it. And no picture, nothing else. And I'm kind of like, what the hell is he talking about? Pay for the door. And, my mind immediately went, man, if he's talking about the sliding glass door, there's only two things that can be wrong that require someone to pay for it. Cracked it or they shattered it. So anyway, before I could let my mind wander, I guess my cleaner was stocking the house at the time, just waiting for the guests to leave. And so as soon as they left, he went in and he called me. He's like, "Bro, you're not gonna believe this. I'm about to send you pictures." And again, it was just like I alluded to in the beginning, where there was just this big human-sized hole, like these guys must have been wrestling outside and someone threw the other guy through the window or something. I don't know, because I mean it was big. I'm 6'3". I could walk through the hole. Like it was that big where I could step through it. And so I mean it was that big. But again, thank God for Airbnb. I don't remember the total. I believe it was like 3,800 or 3,900. Almost, I remember it was just shy of $4,000, but it was completely covered by them. So definitely always have some kind of coverage, for mishaps like that. I think my second worst story was I had a pleather couch, which I definitely don't recommend being at any kind of short-term rental that has near the water, because people come and sit on those with wet swimsuits and it peels off. And I had a guest basically he tried to tell me that it was like that when he came in. Good thing I had pictures. And this is something else I recommend for anyone hosting. Have your cleaners take photos of every time they finish, and have them take pictures of each kind of piece of furniture that's, the big stuff in there. So that way you can zero in, because since I had pictures of that couch before they went in, it was an easy open shut case of I was telling the truth. The guy was lying because he was trying to say, oh, no, it was like that when I got there. And I was like, I just put that there. I know that it wasn't like that. But again, it was easily covered by Airbnb. I think it was like a $1,500 sleeper sofa. Again, replaced it that afternoon, just sent them the receipt and got it. So those are my horror stories. Man, walking into the people passed out on drugs, needles everywhere. I think that's about the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Like we were like, outside of major things being broken or your whole house getting robbed, that's kind of like that scary scenario. But then again, the outcome wasn't anything wild. You called law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They helped get them out.
You got to deep clean it after that, because like you just never know what's in the house, in the drawers and stuff. Like, a kid could find something. So it definitely made me a little bit more paranoid. And so we had to get it deep cleaned and all,
Yeah. No, and that's actually a great point, because I'm sure after that you had to even go beyond a deep clean and be like picking up every piece of furniture and everything just to make sure there's nothing left, hidden around the house that, a child could put in their mouth and, could later on, be liable on you for, having that there.
Right.
So what, on the flip side of that, what has been the most rewarding or heartwarming guest experience you've ever had? We'll start with Vivian on that, because if she hasn't had anything bad, I'm sure she's had tons of great guest experiences. So give us the best one.
I don't know. I think my favorite thing is honestly just reading through the guest book, and people write the sweetest things. And sometimes people will like take up a whole page and just like filled with like gratitude. And it's so weird because we kind of look at it as like a business. Like, yeah, it's hospitality, but we're not really thinking about it that way. So then whenever someone goes out of their way to just be like, oh, it was so amazing. Like it meant so much. Like every little extra touch, they're thanking you for all these specific things. And like, they wrote out a whole handwritten page about it. I was just like, wow, like that makes me feel so good. And like, I don't know, it makes it like a whole new level of rewarding that like, you didn't even think about, like, you didn't set this up for that, but that means a lot. And then like I mentioned earlier that we've had guests like send selfies with the sign, and they're just like, it's beautiful. Like, we're so happy to be here. Like, thank you guys. And that just like, I don't know, it makes you smile. It's like, wow, I didn't even realize that it like meant something to people,
Mm-hmm. What about you, Josh?
I've had a lot of similar instances like that. No one sent me a selfie. Well, actually I might've had a selfie.
You need a selfie wall. That's your problem.
Yeah, no, I do. I have one of them has a selfie wall, but
Okay.
yeah, I need to incorporate it more. And it's a badass one in Navarre.
Uh-huh.
But I had one of my guests. They were like, "Hey, Josh, we just really love this area. I promote myself as a real estate agent. If they want to get into owning their investment property or want to move to the Emerald Coast, I'll have that information in there." And a lot of people contact me from that, right? And so one of them ended up contacting me. They moved out here to Navarre and then moved 4 other family members here. They all bought houses. One of them, the first one, had to leave and go back to Oregon. The rest were from like Cali, and they're all still here. But, they invite me to like birthday parties and different cookouts and stuff, family events, which is awesome. And then, the ones that left, they were even like, "Hey, Josh, can you sell our home?" And I knew they didn't have enough equity in the home. So, I ended up buying that one subject to the existing loan. And because she trusted me, we can make that deal happen.
Dude, I like that. And that's actually such a great idea. And that's a great angle for both you guys, since both y'all are licensed agents. Just like letting people know, like, hey, by the way, if you want to own your own vacation rental down here, and have it be managed, that's great.
Why rent mine?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really like that. And I think, I like that too, especially what Vivian was saying in the beginning, because I think that's the reason I like short-term rentals so much, is you're part of someone's vacation memories. And like when I'm I think back to when I was a kid, we had like 3 years we went on like family vacations back to back, and then life happened. We had financial strain and things there, but like the three family vacations that we went to the beach house together. I mean, I think about those times. I think about how awesome it is for people to experience that with their families, and and receiving those messages about how, hey, we're coming down for my daughter's wedding, or we're coming down for my son's graduation, or we planned on, hey, this we've been saving all year for our Destin trip. We can't wait. I love getting stuff like that. And just knowing that you're part of someone's happy memories in life, because so many other things like in business are tough, and you got things that push back, things don't go right, but being a part of someone's happy memories like that they're going to take with them for the rest of their life. I mean, I just think that's I think that is the most rewarding aspect of short-term rentals, because I'm like you, Josh. There's sometimes I want to throw in the towel, and I've interviewed people on this podcast that are into industrial flex space, and I'm thinking, okay, these guys got it figured out. Like they're not having to fix anything. They're just collecting checks, and it's just straight business. But like I said, being a part of someone's family memories, with their wives, their husbands, their kids. I mean, I just think that's magical. So definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a quick thing, real quick. Sorry to interrupt you. I just remembered, like when I was renting the rooms out, the house before the house I'm in now, this house with this grand piano back here. I rented out the rooms, and then I had a kid that's like, hey, I'm going to propose to my girlfriend here. And I'm like, hell yeah. Like, what do you want? What do we do? What's the plan? And he's like, I'll call you. And so he calls me, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to send some stuff to the house. If you could just set everything up, it would be so awesome. And I like blew up all these balloons, and I'm like, God damn, this guy's got me blowing these balloons up. Like, and I'm like, this is a lot, I need like one of those pumps.
Right.
But I blew up a ton of balloons, hung a lot from covered the room in balloons, right? Put up these lights. It said LOVE. And then there was a thing said marry me. And it was a big bouquet of flowers. And like, I hung, just different roses and stuff over the, like, kind of like a, whatever you want to call it, archway over the door. So as soon as they came in, they did that, and he proposed to her, and like that was the first time meeting them, and she started crying and everything. And I took their photos, and then hopefully they're still doing good. But I asked them, hey, can I post you guys on my social media and say, these kids got married or engaged at my house?
Dude, that's definitely special. I mean, like, yeah, your Airbnb is like going to be a forever memory, a core memory for the rest of their lives about how their love story started, or how their worst relationship ever started, however that plays out. It's 50-50 chance here in America, but
I'm like, don't do it. You can walk out of this right now. What is it? Wedding Crashers?
Right. What were you saying, Vivian?
His grandchildren are even going to be looking at those photos.
Yeah. I think, man, that's an awesome story. And I mean, again, it just shows like how being an Airbnb superhost, that you can be a part of some magical moments, whether it's someone's family vacation or, I mean, someone's special event, like, I mean, getting engaged, like that's a really cool story. I can only imagine like how great, it felt to be a part of that, even though you had to blow up 1 million balloons.
It was worth it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
All right. So we're going to close out part 2, man. You guys have been awesome. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me this long. If someone, again, this is kind of going back to the last one. If someone is experienced and looking from going from a good to great host, and they're going to do that today, what would be the lasting advice that you would tell them to do? We'll start with you, Josh.
Man, I would say quickly get out of the business, like in terms of like doing all the work and working on your business so that you can oversee and see what's working and what's not working. Because you could be falling, if you're in the weeds or in the knife fight, you know, and you're not really seeing the business holistically, you might be lacking in certain areas. So I'd say if you really want to take it to the next level, figure out, like, you know, do some research on your own business, figure out pain points, figure out ways to make the customer experience better, figure out how to get repeat guests, figure out how to make more money while you're doing that. Because if you're not making money, you can't deliver the experience for people, right? So,
Right.
you know, the guests could be paying a lot of money and then you're paying a lot of money because it costs a lot of money to do this, right? So if you're leaving a 24 pack of paper towel rolls, we keep talking about paper towels, you know, because I used to do that, right? Not that many, but a lot. And then it's like, next thing you know, it's like, dang, you know, I've got nothing left, right? And like people are taking towels and stuff. So have all these different processes in place, figure out like what's costing you the most money or too much money, and then figure out ways to kind of cut expenses as well. And it's not like, oh, I'm going to get rid of all these optimization tools because they cost money. $15 isn't going to kill you each month if it's helping you generate more income and bookings and oversight of your website or you know, your property. So, you know, that's my biggest tip is to get out of working immediately in the business as quickly as you can so that you can like analyze and work on the business.
No, I like that. Then Vivian, what's your final tip for someone wanting to go from good to great?
No, that's amazing advice. I would say on like the flip side of that, maybe focusing on what do you need to add to elevate your listing. And maybe that means you need to spend the night in your listing and like see it from the guest perspective, because maybe sometimes it's kind of hard to think about those things. But like kind of set it up for yourself and walk in as the guest and like, how do you feel? Do you feel like it's really nice and special when you actually like go and hang out in the backyard? Is like, are you realizing like there's like a crack in the chair that's like pinching your butt, or like, you know, like little things maybe you would never really notice unless you just gave yourself the experience to really see what you could do to level up. And sometimes it's really, really cheap little things that you could do that people would really appreciate, and then be that more prone to give you a 5-star and then kind of build you up in the algorithm.
Just secret shop yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think
Terrible service.
Yeah,
Sure.
that is a great tip. I like that. Staying in your own place, you know, checking and see what it's like, so you can definitely see it from the guest size. Actually, that's something I tell my managers to do at my restaurants, is to make sure I tell them to try to do it every day, but I say, you know, if somebody get caught up, make sure at least several times a week you're walking in the front parking lot through the front door, seeing the whole picture as the guest comes in, because you know, all of us that own places coming through the back, work in the back, and, you know, don't ever go out to the front. You know, we got to, you know, you'll miss something, not catch it. So yeah, I definitely think no matter what the business is, you got to always put yourself through the customer's eyes to see what it is you can fix. Man, this has been so much fun. I definitely have enjoyed having both you guys on. I've got some good notes, good ideas from you guys. So I know our listeners have. Before we close out completely, Josh, where is a place people can get in touch with you and learn more about you as a realtor and use you as short-term rental host?
Yeah, Instagram's probably my most active short-term social platform. It's _ Ronin Realtor, RONIN Realtor, and then also Ronin.stays on Instagram. I have 2 pages, one for, you know, real estate acquisitions, the other for the short-term rentals. And then you can also shoot us a message on our website at www.ronin, stays.com, STAYS.
Awesome. And then Vivian, where can people reach out to you?
Hit me up on Facebook, Vivian Walsh, or Instagram, Vivian R. Walsh.
Awesome. And then, guys, I appreciate everyone listening in. If you want to come see me sometime, come by one of my restaurants on the Emerald Coast. That's Clean Eats. I have the locations from Mobile, Alabama to Tallahassee, Florida, but everywhere in the nation, there's a Clean Eats. It's awesome. So definitely come check it out. If you're into Healthy Cafe, if you're a busy professional, highly recommend our meal prep services. because we can definitely save you time and money with the meal prep. But then to get in touch with me on the real estate side, as always, all of our episodes are at theeliterealestatepodcast.com. Please reach out to us there. My partner Will and I are actively looking for lots in Escambia County. So we're looking for buildable land. If you shoot us some land, we're going to analyze it to make sure it's buildable. And if it's buildable, we'll buy it. So please shoot us any lots you have over in Escambia County to theeliterealestatepodcast.com, or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Sam_FloridaMan. But guys, this has been a great episode. Appreciate both y'all coming back on. So now, both y'all are two-time guests on the Elite Real Estate Podcast. Can't wait to have y'all back again, because I know y'all are experts, and we're going to bring y'all back for something else again in the future. But everyone listening, thank you so much for listening to the Elite Real Estate Podcast, and we can't wait to see y'all next week. Thank you for tuning in.